Hello, everybody. Welcome again to Frequently Asked Questions Friday. Today we have a returning star, Will Privette.
Hey there.
And the question today is, are auto accidents the only type of personal injury cases that there are?
And, Greg and I will bounce back and forth over the next couple minutes, but the short answer is no. There are several types of personal injury cases that our law firm handles, and there are several out there that go past just car wrecks. Basically any person that's injured by the negligence of another, negligence is the key word there, that's the kind of case that we can handle. The negligence of another that causes injuries, you need damages, obviously, that's one of the elements of a negligence claim. But you have to have a duty of another. That person has to breach their duty. That breach of the duty needs to cause your injuries. And so those are the four elements of a case. And if you can have those four elements met, then we can usually help you. I'm going back to law school a little bit. The term of art, or the term they use, is tort. And tort quite literally means a wrongful act by an individual leading to civil legal liability. There are three types of torts: intentional tort, negligent tort, and strict liability tort. We're getting into the woods a little bit, but we handle negligent torts. A reasonable person standard is what you look at. So, did that person act reasonably in the situation? If not, it could lead to negligence, and it could lead to liability on their part.
So an example that would be?
Well, some additional examples outside of a car wreck. I've got a few here. On-the-job injuries. If you're injured while working, there are some instances where we can help you. Still, one of the instances are if your employer is what's called a non-subscriber. In Texas, Texas Department of Insurance put together, basically a program, workers' compensation, and all employers are supposed to, buy into that program. And if they do not buy into that program, then the legislature has carved out a few rights for people that are injured by somebody who doesn't, subscribe to workers' compensation. So one of those, a big name that does not subscribe is Walmart. So if you work for Walmart and you're injured on the job, you can still go after Walmart for liability because they don't carry workers' compensation.
I think HEB is another one.
HEB is another one. Yeah, yes, sir.
And what kind of proof do you need in a non-subscriber case?
It's actually a very low threshold, 1%. So and again, it kind of goes into the policy behind. They're trying to punish employers that don't subscribe to workers' compensation. So if you're not in workers' compensation program, you have to show, as the plaintiff, which we represent plaintiffs, you have to show 1% negligence on the employer. So very, very low threshold compared to regular liability cases.
So you could be 99% at fault and still recover?
Yes. You'd still have to show that 1% somehow, but as long as the jury sees, even 1% on the fault of the employer, then you can collect.
And how much of your damages would you recover if you're 99% at fault?
100%. You'd still be able to collect 100% of your damages, even though you're 99% at fault. Now that's one of the types of on-the-job injuries. Another type is if you get injured by somebody that's not your employer. So you're working for, a company. You're delivering something to a business, and that business has a defect, and you get injured on that business's premises. Then you can go after that third party, and it would be very similar in terms of thresholds and showing liability to a regular car wreck in that instance, a third party case.
What about if a subcontractor were to run you over in a car or something while you're out there?
That gets into a little bit sticky situation. If it's a contractor, subcontractor, sometimes they can, they can write away some of those rights that they would have. So if you're all in one entity, you'd still would be able to probably go after the third party. You'd have to look at the agreements between the contractors and the subcontractors to see if that's still allowed.
See whether the subcontractor is a borrowed servant or not of the employer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, now you said we handle negligence cases, so we don't handle any kind of intentional tort cases?
Well, intentional torts, and this is from law school research here, most of that kind of falls under fraud, slander, assault, battery, those types of things, when you intend to do harm. And so it actually kind of falls completely out of our kind of expertise, because we're looking at accidents, collisions, stuff that people are not intending to do. I would say a lot of that, it does open you up to civil legal liability, but also criminal liability, those intentional torts. And so, there's not that many instances where we have intentional torts that we help with at our law firm.
Well, I know right now aren't we suing the city of Corpus Christi on behalf of a bunch of workers that weren't paid their pay, what they should have been paid for when they were on call?
Yes.
Isn't that an intentional tort?
Well, it depends on who you ask. I guess you're right. We're arguing that was intentionally done. The defense is probably arguing that was not intentional, and they're probably arguing that didn't happen. But I guess you're right. That would be one of those, maybe a fraud, a misrepresentation that was intentional. There are certain circumstances where we can help.
Yeah. What about if the defendant has a lot of money and he's rich, and he intentionally hurts one of our clients?
Well, then that is a different story, because I was going to kind of get to that later. One of the things you generally need for a case like ours is you need to have the at-fault party has to have the ability to pay your damages. I mean, if you can't pay your damages, you're what's called an insolvent defendant, meaning you can't pay your dues. And so, long story short, you need, generally speaking, we deal with insurance companies that will cover defendants' wrongdoings. But certainly, if you have somebody that is known to be rich, or you can look up their assets through our databases and find out that they have assets, then you definitely can go after somebody personally for an intentional tort. But most of the insurance companies that we deal with kind of right away intentional torts. They say they only cover negligence.
Okay. Intentional torts are excluded
on most insurance policies, yes, sir.
So it's not so much we don't have the expertise, it's just that it's no point in going after somebody if there's no insurance coverage, for the most part.
Correct.
Because most people don't have the assets to satisfy any judgment we may get against.
Correct. And what we'll do is, if you ever think you have a case, we'd love for you to call Herrman Herrman and talk to one of the attorneys here or one of the staff. And if it's something that sounds like there might be some coverage there, we'll definitely look into it. And we have access to databases and people that can find that information out for our clients. And so, we look for that. And if it's something that we can't, we find out that there is no coverage, then, we unfortunately have to give the file back to the client, but no charge to us. We try to find coverage, and if we can't, then it's kind of one of those costs of doing business. We let the file go, unfortunately.
Okay. And then finally, strict liability. You said we don't take strict liability cases?
Well, I feel like we do, but our bread and butter is negligent cases. So strict liability, we have a couple of experts, I feel, in the litigation department. Josh Hopkins is one of them. That's looking more at defective products and inherently dangerous activities. So, if you have a product that was manufactured incorrectly that caused damages, that's going to be under your strict liability tort. When you prove that the product was defective, then that manufacturer is strictly liable for their damages. So we actually, our bread and butter is negligence torts, but we actually, as we just discussed, we have cases that range from intentional torts, negligent torts, and strict liability torts at the firm.
Okay. And I guess this is my fault. I was supposed to get your list of the new cases, products cases we're taking. I mentioned gadolinium last week. We're taking gadolinium cases. We're also taking IVC filter cases. Those are those filters they put in people's veins to supposedly stop blood clots from getting back up to the heart and causing pulmonary embolisms and causing heart attacks. And the filters are breaking, and the little pieces of filter are sticking in people's bodies. They're causing more problems than they were even solving in the first place. We're also taking the talcum powder cases. These are the cases where women have been using Johnson & Johnson's talcum powder or other talcum powder for years. have developed ovarian cancer. And apparently Johnson & Johnson has known for years that there's a huge increase in the likelihood of getting ovarian cancer from using talcum products, but they've never warned anybody. They're still denying to this day, even though the science is clearly against them. I guess they just feel they just keep denying it, and people may believe them. And another one we're taking are the Assure birth control cases. We've got a list of about 15 more. Chris, when I get you that list after this, can you get that posted on our Facebook page? Okay. And so these would all be strict liability cases.
Yes, sir.
And so tell us how strict liability works. What does that mean? How's that different from negligence or intentional?
So it's a little bit different in the sense that, like I said, the strict liability is either dealing with an inherently dangerous activity. So that means that there might not even be any negligence on the fault of the defendant, but they still would have to pay, or it would be some of these defective products, these manufacturer defects. So, I feel like the elements are very similar. It's still a negligence claim, but you have to. It's a little kind of over my pay grade in the sense that it's very similar to a negligence claim, the defective products cases, but you have to prove a lot more. You have to prove a lot more, and you have to prove that there was a safer, better alternative to make that product. So in the talcum powder example, let's say they have 50 ingredients in the talcum powder. If the plaintiffs show that this is an inherently dangerous, you have a defective product, and all it would have taken was to take out one of those 50 ingredients, and it would have been safe for women and men alike. That's an example of strict liability for sure. And so you have to show that it's an easy fix as well, and you have to obviously prove there's a defect. Whereas in a negligence case, there's no defect. There's somebody did something wrong. It's one person doing something to another. Whereas the strict liability tort, it's almost a company doing something wrong, whereas it's instead of a person.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different.
So it's basically putting an unreasonably dangerous product on the market, and when there is no reasonably safe alternative.
Right.
And if there is a reasonably safe alternative, then you shouldn't have put that product on the market.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's about it for today. We kind of used up our 15 minutes. Let me just have a few announcements here. Our Instagram winners winner this week is Erica Resendez. She's our $100 winner. And Chris, how's it, Erica, going to contact us? Or?
Well, if we contact her, she can give us a call at our 882-HELP.
Okay, Erica, you can call us at 882-HELP, or we'll give you a call, but you need to call us because we are giving away last week's winners the prize for last week because the person who won never contacted us, and we repeatedly tried to get a hold of him and he wouldn't call us back. So we are giving that to a new winner, Maddie Pettis. Maddie, M-A-D-D-Y Pettis. So Maddie, be sure and call us if you don't hear from us. And they have to call us by when?
As soon as possible. We reach out about 2-3 days, after we announce the winner.
Certainly by next
Tuesday.
Friday.
By Tuesday. By next Wednesday.
Oh,
Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay. By next Wednesday, Maddie, you need to get a hold of us. For sure, if you wait till next Friday, we're going to be giving away your prize to someone else. So you may want to call us. Also, just a couple of announcements. We're doing PD's back to school bash today from 4 to 7 at the Boys and Girls Club. And this is basically for needy families that need some school supplies and you still haven't gotten any. You can come by there and get them. The first 300 students that come by are going to get a backpack filled with school supplies. So if you don't happen to be one of those families, but you know somebody, tell them to come by the Boys and Girls Center today from 4 to 7. And what's the address, sir, Chris?
It is 5902 Greenwood, I believe.
Yeah, it's on Greenwood. I assume if you're watching this,
3902 Greenwood.
3902 Greenwood. I was going to say, I assume if you're watching this, you probably have a smartphone or something, and you can Google it. But anyway, 3902 Greenwood, come by there 4 to 7, or send anybody you know by there 4 to 7 to pick up school supplies for your kids. Also, reminder, our scholarship deadline is December 1st. You got to get your submissions in before that. The topic is what changes can be made to decrease distraction in automotive vehicles. We keep adding stuff to cars, and it just gives you more and more things to get distracted by. So how can we use technology basically to fix that? So submit your essay. First place winner, $2,500. Second place, $1,500. Third place, $1,000. And again, I say this every week, but you know, it seems like the people that win these scholarships are all from the East Coast or the West Coast. They keep entering this contest and winning. So I sure would like to give it to somebody in South Texas. So please enter, and hopefully you can be our winner this year. This is, I believe, our 4th year, 5th year.
4th.
And lastly, a reminder, the deadline to register to vote is October 9th. And I mentioned this last week, but don't just assume you're still on the voter rolls just because you voted before. The folks in power, the Republicans, are literally kicking you off the voter rolls if you skipped a couple of elections. They did that in Ohio, and they took it to the Supreme Court of the United States. Supreme Court of the United States, by a 5-4 decision, big surprise there, said that's okay, that the Republican Party, basically in Ohio, that controls the legislature, is okay to kick people off the voter rolls if they hadn't voted in a while. And of course, their justification is this false narrative that there's all this voter fraud going on, when the evidence is there is no voter fraud. They literally prosecute about one person a decade for voter fraud. There's just no reason people would risk a felony to get somebody to go vote for them. It just doesn't happen. But they're using that false narrative to justify kicking people off the voter rolls. So just because you thought you're on the voter rolls, or just because you voted a couple of elections ago, doesn't mean you're still on there. You may have been kicked off. So, Chris, can we share that link again to check and make sure you're registered? So we'll put the link up on Facebook again. Please click it. Please go on there. Make sure you're still registered. And if you're not, register. But if just check, because you may be surprised. Lots of people I know. Last election cycle, we had a bunch of people working here that thought they were registered. They showed up to vote, and they got turned away, said they weren't registered. So don't wait till election time to decide, oh, I think I'll check. So you need to do it before October 9th. So we got, August and September, basically. You got 2 months. Please go check. Make sure you're registered. If not, please register. All right. Well, I think that's it for this week's FAQ Friday. Thank you all again for being here.
All right. Thanks again. And Erica and Maddie, congratulations. And people, don't forget to vote.
That's right. And we will see you next week. Same time, same channel.